we'll now go through to examples of noun. So we start with the light one, and if we start with the last example, min dunillahi, I'm using the tip of my tongue. Min dunillahi. If I start with the now go on to the heavy la, I'm going to say inna Allah, inna Allah. I'm now spreading or stretching my tongue. So the lam, the heavy lam, is emanating from the sides of the tongue, inshallah. Okay. Moving on to the light and heavy ra, inshallah. The noon rule, you can go through the videos on YouTube. But for now, we'll go through the light and heavy ra. A lot of students struggle to pronounce the heavy ra, not so much the light. But we'll go through both just to explain where these letters are actually coming from. If you look at the ra that comes from the beginning of the hard palate, that would be the light ra. If we move across to the ending of the hard palate, that is where the heavy ra comes from. I like to call this area the bridge. So what I say to my students, have a good brush around inside of your mouth with the tip of your tongue, so you can do that as well. So start with the incisors. You have a meeting point of the gum line with the incisors. Move along to the starting of the hard palate, and that is the beginning of your bridge. Move along to the ending of the hard palate, and that would be the end part of the bridge. So from the starting point, we see the light ra, the. Then we go on to saying the heavy ra. Okay, ru, ra, ru, the. And you can hear the heaviness, and I need to roll up my my mouth. One of the things that we will talk about is elevating the tongue. So for heavy ra, you need to ensure that you're elevating the back part of the tongue. When you see the heavy ra, you should be able to see the, but if you were to open up your mouth, you'd be able to see the bottom part of your tongue, or the underneath part of the tongue, because you've risen it high to say the heavy ra. We go on to the letters da, and do. We're going to use the tip of the tongue, which is highlighted with this black dot. We're going to put it behind our incisors, which is the top two teeth. And we're going to say the letters da, and we're going to keep the tongue, the back of the tongue, lowered down. There. We're touching with this part of the tongue, the top part of the tip of the tongue behind the incisors. For the letter tho, we're going to be touching a greater portion of the top of our tongue against this part of the mouth, so behind the incisors. And we're going to use this entire area and say do, ti, do, there, ti, do, there, ti, do, ti, do, ti, do, there, ti, do. You can see the difference, and I'm not rolling my lips, which tends to give a very difficult sound, which we will go through when we do the heavy letters and the light letters. For the letter the and tha, we're going to catch the tip of our tongue in between our top and bottom incisors. So we're going to say thalithu, thalithu. A lot of students will pull back the tongue too soon, so they won't complete the sound of the letter, and they will move away from the makharij, the articulation point, and this is a mistake. What they need to do is keep the tongue in the place of the articulation point till they completed the full sound of that letter. So the, thu, the, thu. A lot of students tend to keep their tongue inside, so they say zazizu, which sounds like a zay, okay, or za. They say zazizu, and that's keeping the tongue inside. They need to take that and and stick the tongue out. Some of them will move the tongue in quickly. So they say the, thu, the, thu. And they're not leaving the tongue there. They need to keep it there to complete the sound. So the, thu, the, not the. Okay, if you pay attention, you'll hear the difference. So I'm moving my tongue back in quickly. The, thu. And now I'm keeping it stationary. So I'll do this with my laser, so you know. I'm keeping it stationary now. The, thu. And you can see the difference. When you say the heavy letter of the vowel, you need to be raising part of that tongue to touch the top incisors. So it's not kept straight in a neutral position. It is slightly risen, and you can see that the underneath part of that tongue is now visible. Okay, so I'm going to lift my tongue slightly up, so this part of my tongue from the underneath is visible, but you cannot see that part visible in this articulation point. I am almost biting, or I won't be biting, but it's almost like I'm catching or biting the tip of my tongue with the top and the bottom teeth. Okay, so top incisors and the bottom incisors. And all you're doing is catching the tip of your tongue. So you're lightly, ever so lightly biting on the tip of the tongue. For this one, my tongue has to touch the top incisors only. So it's going to lift up slightly. And that is what will articulate a heavy sound. So, va-vi-vu, there-vi-vu, va-vi-vu. If students find it difficult to articulate this letter with the slight raising of their tongue, you can ask them to open up their mouth slightly more wider and lift the tongue up to touch the top incisors, the outside of the top incisors. It shouldn't be inside like in this image. It should be outside, but you can get them to open up their mouth and raise their tongue up. And they can open this amount as a form of a training. Once they've mastered how much to raise their tongue, once they get that articulation point, then they can go back to this image, inshallah.